Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kristen and this is Growing Zone 9B. So today we have a little bit of a dilemma. I'm running behind and I need to get something going for dinner. So on nights that I'm kind of like short on time, I try to use something maybe that we had left over from the night before, if at all possible. So I have some leftover mashed potatoes, which you can see here in this container. And then I actually have some leftover green beans from the garden, which has still some butter and other deliciousness attached to it. And I was like, well, we have some ground beef that I actually need to cook, or I have some chicken that I did some pulled chicken with. So I thought about making this like a pulled chicken, like pot pie recipe. And I have to cook the ground beef anyway because I need to cook the ground beef. So I think for today, we're actually gonna pull out that chicken and we're just gonna do a mixed chicken, like pot pie. All right, so we're gonna have like a funky meal because here I have, this is leftover teriyaki chicken. Now I made it on the same day. And then as the pulled pork or pulled barbecue chicken. So I've got a little bit of that left over. So I think I'm just gonna make like a little hodgepodge of a meal tonight because I just don't really have the time to think too much about it. So that's what we're gonna do today. So don't ever just let your leftovers go to waste. I hate that. Like, that's one of the things that like bothers me. Is like I'll make like a big meal and then the leftovers just sit there because the next night I make something else, or you know, and you don't really get to use it. So I try to think of things that might actually mix up and taste pretty okay. So we're gonna give it a try tonight. I actually have this pie shell. I try to keep some extra pie shells in the freezer at all times because you just never know. Pies are super easy to make, which we'll make one. You can also make your own crust because a lot of times buying the crust is expensive, but for me it's just more convenient. And you know, I do work 2 jobs, so to me this is what I have available. So I just wanted to clear out the freezer a little bit and I'm like, hey, you know what, let's just go ahead and use this gluten-free pie shell. So I know a lot of people like put beans like on the bottom of their pie shell so the pie doesn't rise the shell. If I'm being honest, I just don't care today. Like, it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do and get it done. That's why I said this real life real cooking. I don't have time to put some beans down there and make it all pretty. I'm just gonna throw it in the oven. So I turned that oven on. Of course, for me it's 365. For y'all it's 350. And I'm gonna cook this pie shell for maybe about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll check it and then we'll come back and we'll get the rest of this started. All right, so that pie shell's in the oven and I have some organic mixed vegetables. Since I know that these green beans aren't going to be enough to make it, you know, a meal truly like kind of from the garden, because that's where I got the green beans from, I am going to go ahead and just substitute some of the vegetables here. They're organic, they're frozen, so it's the best that I have for right now. So I'm going to make that work. I'm going to probably boil about, I would say, at least maybe like 2 cups of veggies. Along with the green beans, and then I'll drain those vegetables off when I'm done cooking them, and then I'll get a big bowl so that I can just mix it all up, and then we'll spread it out into the pie shell, and then we'll add the potatoes on top because basically everything will be cooked at that point. So I'm really just heating it up and getting that nice crust on the top of the potatoes. I'm hoping that those potatoes will actually go around the entire pie shell because it looks like it might be a little thin on those potatoes, but you know, sometimes you're just in a rush. So as I'm saying, don't overthink things, like especially if you're just trying to do something for yourself and you're not trying to be fancy. But I thought tonight would be a perfect night for like just like this chicken pot pie kind of meal. So we'll give it a try, and so I'll bring you guys back as soon as I'm done boiling this water and I'll show you the mixing. We'll drop it in and then we'll do a final shot of what it looks like when it's all done. All right, so my pie shell has cooked to like my liking. I just threw in the steaming mixed vegetables and we're just gonna give this a mix. Now I did go out to the garden and I had some fennel. So I thought fennel would be a nice, like, just kind of like flavor it up a little bit. So I was able to go out to the garden and get that. And like I said, like, we're done with our green beans, and so that was the last of the green beans. So when you don't have a big garden, you just try to make it work to the best of your ability. My grandmother grew up in the Depression, so, you know, she really instilled in me, like, make the most out of your food, because you just never know when something like that could happen. So, and I think it's good to kind of like diversify like your food, because most people would just have like continued to eat it for like leftovers for like the next day, which we already did. And I was like, how can I make this like extend even further? So adding a little bit of vegetables and some chicken back into it, and just make my own little mix. Like, and I'm sure with the barbecue and the teriyaki, it'll kind of be like literally a barbecue teriyaki meal. So I think it'll be a nice kind of change, because most people do the ground beef, but yeah, that's almost like perfect. It'll be a little thick, but nothing wrong with a little thickness. Well, it's still kind of hot. I pulled it out of the oven. So there you go. You can see that I have this going. I'm going to bring y'all down just a little bit so you can see. And then I've got these mashed potatoes. So I don't know how far the mashed potatoes are going to go, but we'll see. And I am cooking the ground beef because the ground beef had to be cooked because I had taken it out. So I think what I'm going to end up doing with that ground beef is I think that I'm going to make like a quesadilla with the ground beef, because we have some gluten-free shells that also need to be eaten. We're not going to eat this tonight necessarily, but I'm going to make sure the ground beef's already pre-cooked, and then maybe tomorrow I'll do the quesadillas, but like making it with ground beef. So basically like a taco, but just like cheese. And you can use Daiya cheese. You don't have to use a meat product. And if you have crumbles, you could use crumbles for that recipe. You can use crumbles in here. You can... I usually feed quite a few people though. I have my neighbor that I go over and take food to. And then my fiance. Oh, look, this potato really went quite far, so that's a blessing. Yeah, so I don't just have myself necessarily that I'm feeding, so I have to think about other people in my life that I try to help out and take care of. So there we go. Simple, quick meal when I'm in a rush. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tint this because I just don't want it to burn. And then the last, I'll probably cook this for like another, I'd say fair 30 minutes. And then we will check it out, and then I'll pull the top off so that it can finish, because everything's really basically cooked. I just want to make sure it's like nice and hot all the way through, because that chicken was still cool because I pulled it out of the refrigerator. So I think that I'll just put it in there for like 30 minutes, test it, then take the top off, and probably cook it for like another 15 minutes so it gets kind of like a little nice brown on the top of those potatoes. And I think that'll be perfect. So easy meal, and I can share it, like I said, with my neighbors and help take care of them because he's alone and stuff. So I just try to help out the people that I love. So all right guys, I'll bring you back as soon as this is done, and we'll do a final piece on how quick this was and easy, and a good way to use your leftovers. Just think about turning stuff into like pies like this, because I'm telling you, in the Depression they ate a lot of pies, if they even had that, like a meat pie or, you know, just a veggie pie, anything that they could put to like make it more filling. So potatoes were definitely used a lot. Like my grandmother, she ate a lot of onions, so she's always, you know, she still loves onions to this day. But and then when my grandfather was in the war, he always talks about that, like he would never eat eggs and like fish because he was in the Navy, and one of his, I guess his ship had like broken down, And so he was waiting on, you know, backup. They were waiting on backup, and basically they just had a fish off the side of the boat, and they had a lot of powdered eggs. So he got really like weird about stuff like that. So I always remembered we had to find unique ways to get him to eat stuff. So this might be just like a cool thing to do with your kids. I know, like, I work with a lot of lower socioeconomic income families, so you know, we just try to, I help them to try to find alternative ways to make meals extend out, because, you know, that's just part of mental health. Like, if you're worried about food and where your food's coming from and how you're going to get your next meal, sometimes just extending what you have is important. And of course, always have gratitude for what you have, because not everybody is in the position where you're at, and while you may think it's bad, there are definitely people out there that are struggling and have it much worse off than potentially you do. So just always keep that in mind, and, you know, always go into food with a humbled heart and find ways to make it work for you. So, all right, guys, I'll bring you right back. All right, so there you have it. Our little meal is ready. So I will cut into it. It's not as crunchy on the top as I would like for it to be, but I could put it back in longer, but it's cooked enough, so. It's very thick. I can tell by cutting it that it's like very thick, so. I always hate getting like the first piece out because it just never seems to do as well as I'd like it for it to, but. All right, there you have it. I'm not really too much into the chicken, so we'll give the potatoes and crust a try. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It definitely has, like, I can sense that, like, barbecue taste to it, so it's kind of nice. It's not like a pot pie would normally be, because a lot of times I just like to make my pot pies, or like my shepherd's pies rather, with the crumbles meat. But yeah, my fiance is gonna love this. My neighbor's gonna love it. So it's good. Good alternative. Good way to utilize the leftover veggies. And yeah, so that's what is for dinner tonight. So remember, guys, just be thinking about things that you can utilize, you know, for yourself, that you can just make from your leftovers. So always keep that in mind, and don't let food go to waste, because there's plenty of hungry people out there. All right, everyone, as always, be kind to one another, love one another, and I will see you all in my next video.